Hey friends, welcome back to the English Pod. I'm Sophia, and I'm so glad you're here with me today. Before we dive in, I just want to say this. If you've ever felt stuck with your English, like no matter how much you study, things still don't click, I get it. If you've ever felt lost, frustrated, or like you're the only one learning alone, trust me, you're not. You're in the right place, because today we're talking about something that's deeply personal for me. Something I know many of you have experienced too, learning English without a teacher, no classroom, no one guiding me step by step. Just me, a notebook, my phone, and a whole lot of motivation. And I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't easy. There were days I wanted to quit, times I felt like I wasn't improving at all. But what I'm going to share in this episode is what did work, what I learned on my own journey to fluency. We'll talk about the real-life struggles, the mistakes I made, and the exact habits that helped me go from feeling completely stuck to having real conversations in English, confidently and naturally. This episode isn't about theory. It's not about what some textbook says you should do. It's about what I actually did, step by step, and what you can do too, starting today. So grab a cup of tea, take a deep breath, and let's get into it. This is going to be real, raw, and hopefully, exactly what you need to hear. Ready? Let's go. Let me take you back a few years. At the time, I was just like many of you, motivated to learn English, full of dreams, but completely lost. I didn't have access to good English teachers. I didn't live in an English-speaking country. I couldn't afford expensive classes or private lessons. I had a phone, some internet, and a deep desire to speak English. That's it. I remember watching videos of people speaking fluent English and thinking, wow, how do they do that? Will I ever be able to speak like that? It felt so far away. I tried all the traditional ways, grammar books, vocabulary lists, language apps, but nothing stuck. I understood the words, but I couldn't use them. I couldn't speak fluently, and every time I tried, I'd freeze, or panic, or forget the words I had just studied. The worst part? I didn't have anyone to practice with. No classmates, no teachers, no speaking partner. Just me, staring at the screen, wondering, am I doing this right? Is this even working? It was lonely and frustrating. I'd sit there some days thinking, maybe I'm just not good at this. Maybe English just isn't for me. And I'll be honest with you, I almost gave up. There was one day, and I remember it so clearly, when I closed my notebook, turned off my phone, and said, I can't do this anymore. I felt like I was doing everything alone, and no matter how hard I worked, I still couldn't have a real conversation. I couldn't understand native speakers. I couldn't express myself without overthinking every single word. But then, something changed. One night, I was listening to a podcast, just casually, nothing serious. It was two people talking about their day, nothing fancy, no script, just natural, real English. And suddenly, something clicked. I wasn't trying to memorize. I wasn't trying to translate. I was just listening. And I realized, this is what I'd been missing. I wasn't living the language. I was trying to study it like math or science. So that night, I made a decision. I'm going to learn English differently. I'm going to stop obsessing over being perfect. I'm going to stop waiting for a teacher, and I'm going to start learning by doing. And that's where this journey really began. I had no roadmap, no guide, just the decision that I would speak English fluently, somehow. And what happened next? That's what I'm going to share with you today. Because if I could do it, alone, so can you. Stick with me, because I'm going to break it all down, step by step. Let me take you into the part of my journey that really transformed everything. Not the studying, not the grammar drills, but the experiences. The moments where real English met my real life. I've got 4 stories for you, and I promise, you'll see yourself in at least one of them. Story 1. The YouTube breakthrough. I still remember the night it happened. I was frustrated, sitting alone with an English grammar book in one hand and my phone in the other. I had studied all day, but if you asked me to hold a real conversation, I would have frozen. That night, I randomly searched daily English conversation on YouTube. I didn't expect much, but I clicked on this video, a casual conversation between 2 friends at a coffee shop, and instantly, I was hooked. They weren't speaking like my textbook. No slow robotic phrases. They were laughing, interrupting each other, using words I'd never seen before. Words like, "Wanna grab lunch? I'm not feeling it today." Sounds good to me. At first, I understood maybe 30%, but something about it felt real. I rewatched that same video 5 times that night. I paused after every sentence, repeated what they said, mimicked their tone. I wasn't just learning English anymore. I was experiencing it. That was the night I realized I didn't need a teacher in front of me. I had the internet, native content, and curiosity. That was my first breakthrough. Story 2. The coffee shop moment. Let me take you to a few weeks later. I walked into a local cafe. I had been watching English YouTube videos every day. I was feeling brave, confident. So when the barista smiled and asked, "For here or to go?" I blanked. Totally. I had no clue what she meant. I stood there, panicked, and awkwardly said, "Yes?" She tilted her head. I panicked more and just said, "Coffee" again. Eventually, she figured it out. But I walked away embarrassed, heart racing. Later that night, I Googled what she said. For here means you'll drink it at the cafe. To go means takeaway. And that's when it hit me. All the grammar I studied didn't prepare me for this. But one real-life conversation taught me something I'd never forget. From that day on, I kept a small notebook of real phrases I heard in real life. From shops, strangers, even background conversations. I would write them down, look them up, and practice them out loud. Phrases I learned. What can I get started for you? Will that be cash or card? Do you need a receipt? These weren't in any textbook, but they became part of my fluency. Story 3. Talking to myself in the mirror. Now, here's the part most people find weird, but it changed my life. I started talking to myself in the mirror. Yes, out loud, every day. At first, it felt ridiculous. I would stare at my reflection and say, "Good morning, I'm brushing my teeth." "Okay, what do I need to do today? Let's see." It felt silly, but slowly, something amazing happened. I wasn't translating in my head anymore. I was thinking in English. I would describe my morning routine, my goals, my feelings, all in English. I started asking myself questions like, how do I feel today? What am I excited about? What went wrong yesterday? It turned into a 10-minute daily ritual, and it became my speaking practice. No pressure, no one listening. Just me in the mirror. It built confidence, and it made speaking in real conversations feel less scary. If you're shy or don't have a partner, Try it. You'll be surprised how powerful it is. Story 4. My first online conversation. And then came the scariest part of all, speaking to a real person. I found a language exchange website, created a profile. Heart pounding, I scheduled my first conversation with a guy named Alex from Canada. The first call was a disaster. I couldn't finish a full sentence without saying, wait, I apologized 10 times. My voice shook, but Alex was patient. He told me, "Hey, don't worry. I make mistakes in your language too." That relaxed me. The second call, a little better. The third, even better. By the 10th call, I wasn't just responding. I was asking questions, telling stories, laughing. I started joining more exchanges, sometimes 10 minutes, sometimes an hour. I met people from the US, Australia, even Nigeria. Every conversation was a lesson, phrases I picked up naturally. That's so interesting. What do you mean by that? Let me think. And you know what? After about 6 weeks, I noticed something wild. I was dreaming in English. Speaking every day, even imperfectly, was the real secret to fluency. Not perfect grammar, not memorizing 50 words a day, just speaking, making mistakes, trying again. So those are 4 moments from my solo English journey that shaped everything. Each one had a challenge. Each one taught me something no book ever could. And I hope, as you listened, you felt something too. A connection. Maybe a mirror of your own experience. Because my journey isn't special. It's possible for anyone. And you? You can start right now. Today. Let's keep going. Let's move into the part that truly made the difference in my journey. Because it wasn't magic, and it wasn't luck. It was habits. Small, consistent habits. Done every single day. Let's break down the exact things I did, one by one. Tip 1. Daily shadowing. This was one of the most powerful techniques I used. Every morning, usually right after breakfast, I'd play a short English video. Sometimes it was from a podcast, other times a vlog or interview. But here's the key. I didn't just listen. I shadowed. I would repeat exactly what the speaker said, at the same time, trying to match their rhythm, pronunciation, tone, even their emotion. Was it hard at first? Oh yeah. I felt silly. I stumbled over words. But slowly, I started catching the natural flow of English. I began to notice patterns, like how natives link words together or stress certain syllables. For example, I realized no one says, "What are you doing?" in slow motion. It becomes, "What you doing?" in real life. That daily 10-minute shadowing routine trained my ear and my mouth. Tip 2. Write every day, even just a paragraph. You don't have to be a writer to write. What I did was simple. I kept a journal. Every night before sleeping, I'd open my notebook or notes app and write just one paragraph in English. What I did that day. How I felt. What I learned. Sometimes I wrote about a video I watched. Sometimes I just wrote random thoughts like, "Today I felt confident when I answered in English during an online chat." And here's the amazing part. After a few weeks, my writing became smoother. I wasn't translating from my native language anymore. I was thinking in English. Also, journaling improved my sentence structure. And I started to recognize grammar rules naturally, not by memorizing them, but by using them. Tip 3. Voice notes changed everything. This was a game changer. I started recording short voice notes every day, usually 2 to 5 minutes long. I'd talk about my day, describe something I just watched, or even practice answers to common questions like, "What do you do for work?" or "What are your hobbies?" At first, I hated the sound of my voice. I'd cringe when I made mistakes, but I kept going, and something interesting happened. By listening back, I could hear where I hesitated. I caught grammar mistakes I didn't notice while speaking. I improved my pronunciation by comparing it to native speech. Voice notes became my private speaking classroom. No judgment, no fear, just progress. Tip 4. Imitate native speakers. This habit is different from shadowing. Shadowing is real time, but imitation, that's performance. I'd watch a short video clip, maybe a scene from a show or an interview, and then pause it. I'd repeat the sentence, again and again, until I sounded like the person. Not just the words, but the emotion, the rhythm, the body language, if I could see it. I remember practicing the phrase, "You've got to be kidding me," from a movie. I didn't just say it. I performed it. It was fun, and I felt like I was building my English personality. Tip 5. Learn from mistakes, not fear them. This was one of the hardest lessons for me. I used to be terrified of making mistakes. I'd avoid speaking if I wasn't sure about every word. But eventually, I realized, mistakes are feedback. If I say something wrong, and someone corrects me, that's a gift. That means I'm learning. So I started tracking my mistakes. If I used the wrong preposition, I'd write it down. If I misunderstood a phrase, I'd look it up later. I stopped judging myself and started growing. Tip 6. Create an immersive environment. Now this one's about lifestyle. I didn't live in an English-speaking country, but I created my own English world. I changed the language on my phone to English. I followed English-speaking creators on social media. I listened to podcasts during walks, cooked dinner while watching English recipe videos, and read tweets from native speakers. Even my dreams started to happen in English. The more I surrounded myself with English, the faster I improved. And that's the secret. You don't need a school. You need habits. Small habits. Done daily. Now I want to pause for a second and talk directly to you. Yeah, you. Listening right now. Maybe you're walking, maybe cleaning the house, maybe lying in bed with your eyes closed. But your brain is here. And that's what matters. So let me ask you something. Have you ever tried learning English completely on your own? No teachers, no classrooms, just you, your willpower, and maybe your phone or laptop? How did it feel? Were you excited at first, then overwhelmed? Or maybe you made great progress, then hit a wall? I want you to really think about that, because I've been there, and I know how hard it is to stay motivated when no one's pushing you, when there's no deadline, no grades, no one watching. But guess what? That's also where the magic happens, because it becomes your journey. Here's another one. What's your biggest struggle with English right now? Is it listening? Like understanding fast speech or different accents? Is it speaking, putting words together in real time? Or maybe it's confidence, that little voice in your head saying, "You're not good enough yet." Take a moment and be honest with yourself. No shame, no pressure, just awareness. Because once you know what your block is, you can start breaking it. And here's a big one. When was the last time you had a real English conversation? Not just reading, not watching, not typing, but talking. Using your voice, having an actual conversation, even if it was short. Was it a month ago? A week ago? Yesterday? Never. If the answer is, "I don't remember," then this is your sign. Your next step is simple. Speak. Even if it's just 5 minutes a day. Even if it's just to yourself. Now let me ask you one more thing. Think about the last time you learned something completely on your own. Maybe it was how to cook a new recipe, or how to fix something in your house, or how to use an app. What made it work? Was it the way you focused? The way you kept trying even when it didn't make sense at first? You already have that skill. You know how to learn. So now, apply that same skill to your English. You're not starting from zero. You're starting from experience. So let's keep going. Because in the next part, I'll show you exactly how I used real conversations, podcasts, videos, chats, to transform my English in ways no textbook ever could. Ready? Let's dive in. Let's take a little time now to go back through some of the stories I shared earlier and look at the real English expressions that came up, the kind of language that doesn't always show up in grammar books, but that native speakers use every single day. These phrases, they're short, casual, emotional, and they carry so much meaning. So here's the first one. I had no idea what they were saying. You might remember, I said this when I talked about my first experience ordering coffee and hearing the phrase, for here or to go. Now, let's break that down. I had no idea is a very natural way to say, I didn't understand at all, or I was completely lost. It's simple, right? Not, I didn't know what they said, but I had no idea. It's softer, more emotional, and it works in any situation. Like, I had no idea how to answer the question. I had no idea where I was going. I had no idea that was so common. Try using that in your next writing practice. Here's another one. I froze. Now that's a powerful little sentence, isn't it? When I told the story about talking to a stranger at the airport, I said I froze. Not because I was cold, but because my brain stopped working. I was nervous. I didn't know what to say. That's what I froze means. It's used all the time in English. You can say, when the teacher called on me, I froze. During the interview, I froze for a second. I saw the question, and I just froze. Now this is real fluency. Not just learning what froze means, but feeling it, knowing when it fits. And that comes from listening to real stories. Now here's one more expression from the stories earlier. That's when it hit me. Oof, such a good one. It came up when I was talking about how I realized that textbooks weren't enough. I said, that's when it hit me. I needed to hear real English. Let's look at that phrase. It hit me doesn't mean someone punched me. It means I suddenly realized something. A strong thought or feeling came out of nowhere and hit me emotionally or mentally. You can say, when I looked around and didn't recognize anything, it hit me. I was really lost. After the call, it hit me. I should have said more. That's when it hit me. I'd been studying, not practicing. It's emotional. It makes your English sound real, human, deep. These are the expressions you want to collect, not memorize from a list, but feel through experience. That's how I learned them. Not by reading, but by listening. Now let's take just a minute to look at some grammar, but in a natural way. I'm not going to give you boring rules, just show you how grammar really sounds in life. In the story about shadowing, I said, I've been doing this every day for a month. That's present perfect continuous. I have been doing. It shows something that started in the past and is still happening. I didn't say, I do this every day. That's present simple. Sounds like a fact. But I've been doing this every day. That tells a story. It says, I started. I continued. I'm still going. This is how grammar comes to life, through listening to real English. Another natural sentence I used was, I didn't even realize I was learning. Now, this is cool. It shows past continuous. I was learning. Not I learned. Not I learn. But I was learning. It happened slowly, without me even knowing. So many of us have moments like that, and this is your reminder that you can learn the same way, by listening to how people speak, by picking up patterns, and then trying them out yourself. So here's what I want you to take from this section. Don't learn English by force. Learn it by feeling, by listening to stories, by noticing what people say and how they say it. That's what fluency really is. And when we come back, I'll share how I kept going, even when it felt slow, and how you can build your own powerful fluency routine, step by step. Let's keep going. Let me leave you with something that took me years to fully understand. Something I wish someone had told me when I first started learning English alone. Fluency is not a destination. It's not some final place you arrive at with a certificate in hand and a checklist of grammar rules completed. Fluency is a daily practice. It's waking up and choosing to speak, even when you're unsure. It's listening to real conversations, even when you don't understand every word. It's writing one small paragraph, even when your grammar isn't perfect. It's showing up, again and again. We've been taught to think that we need perfect grammar before we're allowed to speak, that we need a teacher to tell us when we're good enough. But that's just not true. You don't need perfect grammar to connect. You need courage. You need consistency. You need curiosity. And if you have those three things, I promise you, the rest will come. Sometimes we wait too long. We tell ourselves, I'll start speaking when I'm ready. I'll join that group when I'm more confident. I'll talk to native speakers once I've studied more. But let me be honest with you. Fluency doesn't come from waiting. It comes from speaking before you feel ready. I made mistakes. Hundreds. I froze. I forgot words. I misunderstood questions. But every single time, I learned something, and I grew. If I could learn English without a teacher, from my room, from free podcasts, from coffee shop mistakes, from talking to myself, so can you. You already have everything you need: your voice, your time, your heart, and your reason for learning, whatever it is. So as you finish this episode, I want you to remember this. You're not behind. You're not too slow. You're not too old. You're not too anything. You're exactly where you need to be, and you're doing better than you think. So speak today, even if it's messy, especially if it's messy, because fluency isn't built on perfection. It's built on bold, messy, beautiful practice. And you're already on the right path. Let's keep going, together. Before we wrap up, I want to invite you to take one small, powerful step. If this episode helped you, if even one story or tip made you feel seen, motivated, or ready to try again, then hit that subscribe or follow button right now. This podcast is all about growing your fluency one conversation at a time, and I'm here every week to walk that journey with you. Now I have a challenge for you, but it's simple. Try one new English habit today. Just one. Talk to yourself in English for 5 minutes. Record a voice note. Watch a short conversation on YouTube and shadow it. Write a paragraph in your English journal. Or just listen to this episode again and repeat some of the phrases we practiced. Whatever it is, do it today. Because action creates progress, not perfection, not waiting, just doing. And then, come back. Come to the comments. Tell me, what tip or story from today stuck with you the most? What new habit are you starting? Let's talk about it. Let's support each other. Let's grow together. Because fluency isn't something we chase alone. It's something we build as a community, as a movement, one real English conversation at a time. You've got this, and I'm proud of you, just for showing up today. Let's keep learning, let's keep speaking, and I'll see you in the next episode.